Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Live Well podcast. I have been excited for this episode, I would say for months. I knew this one was coming. We have an incredible guest coming on here today. She is an icon, she is a legend. Elizabeth is here to inspire you, to empower you, and her story is going to like activate something in you to claim something bigger for herself and yourself. And with that, welcome Elizabeth to the show.
Hi, Liv. I am also equally as excited about this. I'm a,
So, can you just tell us a little bit about you? Let's also get into like your sun, moon, rising, your human design, and then kind of who you are and what types of things you do on the planet.
yes, of course. I am Elizabeth Schmidt. I am a Capricorn sun, Cancer rising, and Pisces moon. My human design is I think the 6-2 line, which is the role model hermit, which is a funny dichotomy. And I own a design agency that specializes in luxury beauty brands. And I also own a natural skincare company called Face Kit.
Yeah, and you're a generator too. Like you're a 6-2 generator. And guys, like let me just say, when I mean like she does graphic design, I mean like the brands that you've been using for all of your life. That's what she does. Like those types of brands. Like I guarantee if you go to your bathroom, she's designed stuff there for you. Like that's how incredible she is. So, can you walk us through kind of like your business journey, kind of like before we started working together? What was that kind of like for you, and what that was like? What was going on?
Well, before we started working together, I would say I was tired and I was scared and burnt out and constantly on the precipice of, am I doing the right thing? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? This is so hard. Why is this so hard? Like, how did I learn? How did I get here? How do I learn how to get to the next place? I guess I felt a lot of I don't want to say insecurity because I feel secure in my art and in my creativity, but maybe imposter syndrome or like I was wearing big girl pants that were too big for me. And I just was constantly feeling like I wasn't enough or measuring up to the expectations that were being placed on me. And I was always swimming upriver. It was a beautiful river. And like you said, amazing clients and amazing brands. But I never felt like I was truly flowing and thriving in the way that I wanted to. And I honestly thought I needed to retire before I felt that way.
And so how was that like affecting your life? Because I know you also come from more of like a corporate type of like hustle and bustle when you lived in New York. Like, how was that your experience of life and business at that time?
I mean, it was hustle culture, 100%. I was working at L'Oreal, climbing the corporate ladder, living in New York City. I mean, nothing natural was prioritized, nothing feminine was prioritized. It was truly the harder you work, the better you are, the better you are, the more accolades you get, the more accolades you get, the more worthy you are. And I was just stuck in this vicious cycle of feeling like my worth was always outside of me or always in the next project or promotion or whatever it is I was striving for at that moment. And it just felt like a moving target that I never could actually like embody.
Yeah. I like to say like the carrot dangling in front of the horse. Like you never quite get there. It's always like just a little bit in front of you, just a little bit in front, and it keeps walking and walking, but it never actually gets to like eat the carrot.
Yeah.
So then you were in New York and then you moved to Tulum where you now are. And that was in the pandemic, somewhere around there. Like what run us through like the kind of like the timeline of how things happened.
So I actually moved to Tulum in August of 2020. Before that, I was living in New York City for almost 9 years, I think 8.5 at that point. And most of that time I had been with L'Oreal. So it was a very, fixed life. And I had one trajectory. I was living in one city and kind of one energetic frequency. And then COVID hit and I mean, everything changed. We're now working from our little apartments in New York. There was a lot of fear. There was just a lot going on, and I just had this inner calling of like, you need to find somewhere else to live and work from right now, or just at least like this calling that you don't want to, you shouldn't stay here too long. And so I came to Tulum in August just to kind of get away, work from the jungle for a few months. And 4 years later, I'm still here and thriving.
I love it. And so you're in Tulum, you're getting kind of like a break from that hustle and bustle. And then I guess like you find me. What let you know, or like what was that moment for you where you're like, oh, this is the type of work I need. Like this is the type of work that is going to help propel me, help catapult me. Like this is what's going to be best for me.
So I actually found you through a photo shoot that you did here. And I think it was you and your partner. You were on the beach, I think in a white shirt or a white towel or something, and it was sunrise. And I have this picture. I'll send it to you.
Oh my god.
I'm like, wow, like I love this picture. This girl is so cool. So I go to your page. I think it was suggested for me. And I read that you like were working on nervous system regulation. And one of the biggest things I was struggling with was like this constant feeling of anxiousness inside. I had done therapy. I had done a few women's retreats. I was already on my path of healing, but I couldn't shake this nervousness inside. And I just kind of knew like, I need some help with my nervous system. And at that point, to be honest, I didn't even really know what that meant. I just knew that I really felt like these nerves a lot. And I felt like not everybody experiences this. So there's something here that needs to be healed to really embody all the knowledge that I had been receiving from all the other kind of things I was doing at the time.
I love how you said you'd done other things before, but this was different. I have to let me know. I think I know exactly what dress. It's like a knitted white dress. Like I think I know exactly what you mean, but I didn't know this how you found me. You never told me this. I love that.
I think you were in Tulum at the time, or you had just done something here and you were still posting photos
Yeah.
from this beach. And I saw the photo, and the photo led me to the page. And then I started following you. And at that time, I felt like, I don't know what I can do with her, but I want to do something. And I remember initially asking you about one on one, and I was just like, oh, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready. So I just started dabbling with some of your like master classes. And then I think the first like real course that I had signed up for was Wealth Recode.
Mm.
And then next thing you know, we canceled Wealth Recode, and I was a one-on-one client. And that was like, I think over a year ago.
Yeah.
Months, yes.
Incredible. So now that we've spent all this time together, I mean, I feel like your life's done a completely like 180, like it's so different. Can you run us through some of like the highlights or what you feel were like the big pivotal moments in our work together so far? Like whether that could be like in your business, how you experience life, like we're talking about all of it, right? How you feeling yourself. What were the kind of like some of those big things that came through this work?
I'm like, how much time do we have? Because my list is so long of aha moments and pivotal change points that you helped me create. I mean, honestly, I could talk for days, but I want to think of like the main ones that kind of sent me on a new trajectory. A lot of it started with some of the healing, some of the past healing, relationship worthiness, just kind of diving into your world where we did the activations, where I went back to my younger self. I went back to the first time I felt this sensation, whatever it was we were working through. And I just started noticing like some of my anxieties just started to fall away after those sessions. And my mental brain couldn't really wrap my head around what was happening, but I'm like, okay, this is working. And so we signed, we continued on the path. And then aside, like the healings really did a lot for me because that was really working on the core wounds and the nervous system. And then the things that I felt like were just revolutionary, game changer, legendary was just being able to plug into you every day on Telegram and being able to like drop an insecurity, drop a fear, this is coming up. Or, when I like started making more money and I was buying things and I'm like, I feel guilty for buying this, or, I so and so said this, and all these little things that stack that were leading me to the place of feeling anxious, unworthy, not enough. We started to dive into them every day. And every day you were giving me little keys that I was able to start kind of dissolving some of the beliefs. One of the things that I love that you said is just like, if it's not true for everyone, it's not a universal law, right? So just, and that for everything, right? Like working more hours and that hustle culture and feeling I need to work more to make more. And you're like, well, if that was true, the people working the most hours would be making the most money. That's not the case. So you started to help me one by one release these conditional beliefs that were just picked up from society or childhood or who knows where, and starting to realize that they were actually beliefs and not universal law. And so if they're not universal law, they don't have to be true and they can be changed. And I think that was the moment we really started to loosen a lot of like what was keeping me like wound tight, and we started to really one by one these conditional beliefs started to fall away. And that was like when the foundation was loose enough, then we started diving into the energetics, and that's when everything just started to blow up. My favorite story is the one in Monaco, which we talk about that day all the time. It was last year, August 8th, and it was like the 8/8 portal. And I was in the south of France on a solo journey, just like, expanding kind of my frequency of wealth, expanding into the woman that I was, and the reality of where I was in life, which was growing and flowing. And so I was in Monaco, and I remember asking you, just like, it's the 8/8 portal. Do you have any ideas of what I could do today, or, recommendations of what you're doing? And you told me that I should go outside, walk around Monaco all day and just like breathe in the wealth. You were like the wealth of the rose garden, because I was staying at a hotel right in front of Grace Kelly's rose garden. The wealth of go down to the port and look at the yachts and breathe that frequency in. I ended up going to the castle, and I took myself to a nice lunch, and then I ended the day at Chanel. And I had never bought myself a designer bag because I felt that it was, I just wasn't there, I guess, but I was. And so then I was just breathing in the wealth all day. And then finally, I'm like, you know what? I would like to purchase a bag. And this all sounds so just like fun and joyful, which is what it truly was, which is what our work is, which makes it so different. But I had no idea that I was truly catapulting myself to a whole new level of wealth and abundance and income just by playing with those energetics that day.
I have full body chills. I remember that day. I even remember your story in Monaco with like the roses, which prompted me to then say like the roses because I saw where you were. I see it all so clearly. And Chanel, and like even the energy of like how magnetic you were to the people you met at Chanel, like the women you met at Chanel. Like it was just like a testament to like how magnetic that like cracked open you were at that time, because afterwards everything started flooding in. And what I love about what you said was like your mind couldn't wrap around how we do a session and then it was like gone. And I think some people are under the misconception that it takes like 60 to 90 days to rewire, and I'm like, no, it just takes a session, it takes one time. And you've also been someone who embodies it afterwards, because it's not just the session itself. And something I've really noticed about you is when I take those things, whether it was on the call or in Telegram, you took them and you applied them. You didn't take them like, yeah, but, nah, nah, yeah, but. You're like, okay, got it, going. And you implemented. And you got the result. And then you're like, oh, and it worked. I was like, yeah, because you did the thing.
But it was fun. What I couldn't, like, this is fun. Like, my assignment of the day is to go and breathe in the wealth of Monaco. Like, okay, sign me up. And yeah, then I think shortly after I had met a guy and I was on a yacht in Corsica with this man, and that day, I got an email from my business partner saying, "Hey, I have a new client I'd love for you to meet." And while I was having fun in Corsica, my first 6-figure a month client dropped in. And that was probably a week after this day in Monaco. So the time really wasn't that big. And I truly did nothing to like approach this client. I didn't do any sort of outreach. I didn't externally do anything. But internally, we were realigning and rewiring everything. And so things just started to fall in my lap consistently.
Out of nowhere. Which is not out of nowhere. Like it's in the quantum, is there. You just became the one to receive it. And what I love, I think also, and even people who may have are in corporate or have been in corporate, they may have felt like, well, the only way they could get there is by climbing that ladder or having to do that to make that level of money. And like you've transcended what I think some people's goal are for a year into a month, and you've done it with more ease, more flow, more grace, more joy, more bliss, more nervous system relaxation, like than I think you thought ever could be possible.
Oh, 100%. I never thought this would be possible. To have this level of business and feel this relaxed. And there were waves. I mean, for sure, the journey from landing that client to really stepping into my power, I think it was about a 3 month, and we were still working together. But it was really when you pushed me to get more help and to hire and to expand into trusting that I needed more support, because I think I called you one day, one of our calls, and I said, I don't know if I can do this. It's too much. Like, and you're like, well, is it that you can't do it or that you don't have enough support? I feel that you need to hire a few people. And that was a big deal. I mean, I had a few assistants or freelancers, but we're talking like the first really big full-time art director hire. And you really helped me to kind of anchor in that frequency of, no, I need support, I need staff. And now, not even, well, I guess a year later, I have like 9 people working on different projects right now as we're on this podcast. So, I mean, taking that one step really was revolutionary. And sometimes, like, you're standing at the edge of this precipice of the next level, and you're just too afraid to step. And I think what was always helpful is you were there helping me not just figure out what steps to take, but also having the courage to actually take them.
And building that, like that safety, right? That safety that you could do it, building that structure for you of your business, also internally but externally with a team to grow. Because like you said, you were at a point where you would have to get support, you'd have to grow it in order to get that business to grow, but it required you going it first. And I even remember we worked through a little bit, I'm like, well, no, we need to build the structure first, otherwise the water overflows. And not a good kind of overflow, but like a shit, there's water all over the floor type of way. And we don't want that. We want all of it in the container. So we build that out first. And like I said it, you did it, and you're like, oh, it's working.
Well, also, if you remember, right before that, my office actually flooded. Remember, I had in Tulum, there was like a storm, and my office flooded, and I was flooding. And at that point, I mean, I had no automation, I had no real system. I was running a really small team. I didn't have like any full time. I didn't have a project manager. And you just really, on top of the energetics, and this is what I've loved about your work is, yes, we're working with the energetics, but we're also working with like how our days are scheduled. What program do I need? What person do I need? What time do I block off on my calendar? What's my schedule look like? And how does all of that feed into me feeling good, relaxed, happy, joyful, in overflow, instead of feeling, bogged down, like disorganized. And so I love that we take care of both. We clean up the 5D, the energetic, and we clean up the 3D, which is the tactical day-to-day stuff that actually runs your business.
I love that you mentioned that, because I think people may think, oh, the energetics are just 5D, it's all about that, not realizing that a lot of like that structure and stability and foundation, like you build that in the 3D, and that's actually very good for your nervous system. Like you building out that team was so good for your nervous system. However, it required us doing that first so that you could do things like block off your calendar and do this and do that, especially because it's not like you're just going to give it away and then clients are going to fall through the cracks or things are going to fall through. It's like, no, you're running a business. We need to make sure that support and structure in this place is just not your job anymore. It's going to be someone else's. And then that frees up your time. But yeah, it is that like beautiful balance between the two that is like really required and not pendulum swinging. You know, one being like all 3D, all structure, like very bro, but not all the way at the other end where it's just like, we're gonna do nothing all day, no structure, like flowing and like it magically drops in. And it's neither side. It's like that balance in between.
Well, it's both. And I that's what I've loved about our work so much is we're hitting all the areas. It's always holistic because yes, you have helped me scale my business to almost a seven-figure business. We're very close to, but also you've helped me change my life. My apartment. I mean, even just like expanding into a bigger space with an office, like kind of going on some of these trips or doing these things that I maybe felt restricted around because, well, what if the money runs away? Or what if there's an economic disaster or all these fears? And I was afraid to truly live. And you really helped me there. You helped me with family stuff, food, body image. I mean, there's so many pieces of the puzzle that we worked on that then became this beautiful art piece that is my life now. And I
Can you
that was
dive more into that like experience you have of life? Because I feel like for those who know, like you have, if I were to put like a poster child of like the brand, it's you in terms of like, you know, the travel, the ease you have. Like before, I know maybe like you were running into work. Now you have like time block in the morning so you can go to Pilates, you can make a good breakfast. I mean, there were times where you weren't like getting a chance to eat till 2 p.m. Like, can you paint us a picture of like how your actual experience of your life and your business has shifted?
oh my gosh. I mean, I wake up every day like the world is so beautiful. Thank you, God. Like I'm just like I'm so in love with this space. I just wake up feeling so good all the time, like consistently. I just there's this I don't know, this intangible like yumminess to everything I'm doing. And yeah, you helped me like restructure it because I would jump into meetings without nourishing myself first. I would, give to others without first giving to myself. I wouldn't block off the time to actually exercise. And so I wasn't like following through on the commitments to myself. And all that led to like lack of self trust, feeling burnt out, feeling like shaky and that nervousness. And we just clean that up one by one. And now, I don't know, every morning feels like a slow morning, which is beautiful. I rise with the sun. Sometimes I go to the beach for sunrise and do walks, but most of the time I just sit in my beautiful jungle apartment. I have coffee, I'm playing music. I have these slow mornings. I nourish myself first. Then I check in with clients and with my team and make sure everyone is like good for the day. And then I run out to an exercise, whether that's Pilates or weightlifting. And then when I come home, I have a nice lunch and then I really plug in for the rest of the day. And that until maybe like 4 or 5 p.m. I mean, it's not even working more hours, but the hours I work are more intentional because the other parts of my body are nourished, that then when I sit down to do that, like, intense work, I feel great. I've already had a whole day and I'm not a 5 a.m. club girl. So like, it's not about, I used to think if I wanted that life, I had to get up earlier and I had to struggle through it to get there. And that just wasn't what I wanted. And so we really tailored all of our like work and how I structured my life to what it is that actually brought me joy and not some external version of what success looks like. And
Oh my
yeah, it
goodness, I
changed
love
the game.
that.
It's game changing.
And I think that is also so important because I always want to highlight like the experience of life and business as well. Because it's one thing to make a lot of money, it's another thing your experience in your life and your business as you're making the money, as you're growing your company, as you're growing the business, which you've done beautifully because you have that and the company is still growing. And it like And I remember I can't even count how many times you've said to me like I can't believe it. Like it's just I get to make this much money and like work this less and like do this and like it's like oh my god. You're like I are you sure? And I was like yeah. And we were like no, like really, are you sure? I was like yeah.
Sometimes I even still feel that way. Like, am I doing this right? Because I felt like if I wanted to make this level of money, I thought I had to do it at the expense of my, I don't know, of how I felt, of like I had to give everything to get there. And that's what hustle culture does teach us. Like, you have to work more, grind, get up earlier, stay up later, like, and not stop. But as a woman, this actually doesn't work. And before we started to work together, I mean, I had adrenal fatigue, my hormones were slightly off, my thyroid was low, I was having problems like speaking my truth, setting boundaries, standing in my power, saying no. I mean, I remember that was a game changer. Like as we started to expand so rapidly, I was saying yes to everything, out of fear that if I didn't say yes, then it wouldn't keep growing. And it was like another. I feel like we've gone through so many evolutions of like inhale, exhale, where every growth came with its next level of challenges. But then once we kind of cleaned those up, then the next level of growth came, and then the next level of challenges. And we just kept like riding these waves, and the waves just got bigger and bigger. And now it really all feels like it's anchored. Like this is just my life. This is the frequency I function from. Like, why isn't everyone doing this? Like, I don't understand.
I don't either, but now they will. Now they'll hear your story and they will. And I really, like I said before, want to commend you because when you say like why isn't everyone doing this, you actually decided to do it.
Yeah.
You decided, you plugged in, but also like you showed up and you followed the embodiment and like you took what I said, you took things in the program, you took the safety, like you embody it. And so I really like want to recognize that because not everyone either does embodiment or like they want it, but they're not willing to become the one. And you have always been willing to like become that woman and like now you always are, right? We're always that person underneath. It's more of a letting go and an unbecoming, shedding all of those layers, but you've done that so beautifully. And I feel like it's been like a full circle moment for you.
Yes, and I'd love to say that I could have done it on my own, but honestly, I just don't feel like I would have. And so having you as a coach and a mentor and a guide and a friend even too, because we talk about all sorts of things in our Telegram. That's what I love. I can talk about anything with you. And just having that support was so helpful and game changing. But also, you taught me how to nourish myself because the way you spoke to me was now setting a new standard of how I should be speaking to myself. And so, even just how you nourished me or nurtured me allowed me to have a new, like, set point of what self nurturing looks like. And so I don't know, like I have just benefited so much from really making the investment and having a coach. And at first it was scary, like financially it was scary. Like I had never invested this much. I was someone who was doing a session here, a session there, nothing more than $100. And now we're talking bigger growth, bigger, I don't know, just bigger everything. And so I almost let that get in the way. But then I started with, like I said, some of your mini stuff, and it changed me so much that I knew that if I went all in, that the results would be exponential. And we've talked about it. I mean, the amount of income that has grown working with you has paid 10 times what I've invested in the coaching. And yeah,
Doing the math like more than 10 times, like drop in the bucket type of vibes.
yes. And then it became to a place where I'm like, how can I not have my secret weapon? How can I not like keep that with me? Because, like I said, every new level requires new skills. And so yes, like it's great to get to a level and then, kind of take a month for integration. But then when I'm ready to go to the next level, I also know that's going to require new skills that are for that level of challenges. And so we're just constantly like moving the needle, and you're constantly giving me new tools and techniques and keys of like wisdom that help me unlock that next level as well. And so I'm not just like at a new level with no tools.
Yeah. And I love how you said about being held, because I think for a lot of women, it's actually so supportive for your nervous system to allow yourself to be held at this kind of level. Because as you're someone big here for big things, like you have your agency, you're growing your own like skincare brand, that actually like requires you to be held. To try to do it alone without support, or maybe to project that support onto friends or family who may not may have their own stories or their own things, and then that's going to derail you, or maybe they just don't have the knowledge and expertise themselves because they haven't done it. It's actually the most supportive thing you can do for your system and for yourself, to be held in that, to be held both as a business owner but also as someone who's growing a business and has a life, has stuff happen with family, with friends, like is navigating other things. It is the best thing that you can do for yourself and your business, to put yourself in a space where you are so held and you have that safe space that you can lean into at any time and get the support that you need.
Yes, and I mean, one of the things I learned the most from you is like while you're healing, you can't plug into unsafe spaces, right? It's like constantly scratching the wound. So as I'm kind of anchoring in a new like belief system and frequency and level of success, I couldn't keep asking the people who, you know, who kind of triggered some of my wounds or that scarcity mentality for advice. Like they weren't equipped to do that. Also, every time I hit a new level, one of the things we always connect on is like, oh, and then someone made this comment and I wobbled a little because, I was feeling great on my own until someone was like, well, isn't that expensive? Or what if this happens? Or what if that happens? Or, the economy is bad. And I would just like, well, I don't know. I don't know. And then I had to return and return and return to this baseline frequency and really embody that so that I was the dominant frequency and not constantly taking on other people's projections.
Yeah. And you have that space for yourself where like you're plugged into the frequency that you do desire.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's you. That's the telegram. That's, every time one of these, and you always help bring me back to center. And, it's easy to change our like neural thought patterns, but it takes repetition. And so being able to plug in regularly, and sometimes it was repetitive, but it was this repetition of, no, this is how I see things. No, this is how I function. And just repeating that, like you compare strength training and building the muscle to like building this frequency. That was so helpful because after a year of it, I was like, that's now where my brain goes, right? I'm now thinking the way that you've like, shared with me, and naturally because I've been working that muscle for long enough. But just plugging in once or doing one thing and then leaving it, like doing one master class and then not doing anything for months, that was great knowledge, but it wasn't a true embodiment until we started practicing it every day and multiple times a day.
Thank you, I didn't even like have to prompt you to say that. You just said it on your own. Thank you. And that's the difference when you go all in, right? That's the difference when you claim that level for yourself, of putting yourself in the level of proximity, the level of the room. It's not like I'm going to do this class for an hour or this thing. Like you're like, no, like I'm in this. This is who I'm becoming. And that is why. And I think a lot of people maybe dabble, they dip their toe in, but then the results also match that. And so I think like your results really match your ability to go all in, to plug in. Because not even sometimes people get in proximity, they don't even like utilize that or plug in. And you are always very good of like, no, this is coming up, plug in so that we can dissolve it, so that we can move through it. And you are always leaning in, lean in, lean in, lean in, so that you could dissolve it, so that you could anchor that frequency, so that you could embody it. And of course, the results just speak for themselves. Like I remember you when you came, you wanted to anchor one level, and like we blew past that. And it's like 3x past. You're like, I want to get here, and it's like 3 times that later. Here we are.
Yeah, I didn't even know how high this thing could go. That was the crazy part, is I had small goals compared to what has actually happened, which is just shows like when you truly step into the energetics, things move fast and they move out of place like in a way that you couldn't even imagine for yourself. And so that was the other thing too, was like I stopped worrying about the how. I stopped like limiting myself, and I really started to play in this like limitless frequency that, oh my God, anything is possible. Like truly anything. And we've started to see that result by, not just the way I live my life, but like how I feel inside. That nervousness we were talking about at the beginning, that anxious feeling, like that is pretty much, I would say, 90% gone. And I suffered with anxiety for a lot of my life because, I was always like, wanting to do better and trying to people please. And I didn't know that I could use my voice. And I don't know, there's just so many things that now so much of that is dissolved. And I truly plug in daily with my team and with my clients from a very relaxed place. And there's very little now that like really throws me out of balance. And then when it does, I'm like, great, this is another place we need to dissolve. Because now I see all these times where I'm wobbling as the opportunity and not as like a weakness or like a place where I'm broken. Right. I used to see that as like, I'm broken. This is something wrong with me. Now I'm like, oh, let me ask Liv, what will we do about this next? And we just keep moving through it and keep moving through it.
I love that you look at it as an opportunity because that's exactly what it is. And it's an opportunity. But sometimes people even get caught up in like problem or like the feeling, even the shame about it, that they're all only caught up in the shame instead of just addressing it. It's like, oh, opportunity, address it, move on, done. It's that solution frequency versus problem frequency.
Yes, there's
And
a post-it on my computer that I kept for this whole year. It's like move into solution frequency. And that is like the first thing I do now when a problem arises. Like, how do we solve this?
I can even see like through the ways that you've held your power and the situations that you've had to navigate where some people may have feared, well, if I stand in my power, if I do that boundary, I might make less money. I might lose that client. I might have this happen. And you've held your power. And if that happens, like, the money comes back through a different way or a different client, and or the client just adapts to your boundary and standard. Like, oh, versus if you didn't learn how to do that, you'd still be bending over backwards. You'd be people pleasing. You'd be in response mode. You'd be doing this. You'd feel resentment on the inside. Like this whole web and this loop that just keeps going and going. And so I think even your willingness, like I said, to always embody that work, despite we've worked through like any fears that could happen if you were to do that in your business, has then allowed you to also catapult.
Yes. I mean, the work is working. That is for sure. I always say that to him, like the work is working. And yeah, I mean, and it just is so inspiring to like I'm inspired by my current self, like my past self. I didn't even know this was possible. And so I also just feel such a level of self-love in this process because it's been so fun and beautiful and relatively quick. I mean, we've been working together a little over a year and the growth has just been astronomical. And before, I always was like seeing things as, like I said, like, oh, I'm broken. This is something that's wrong with me. Like, why am I like this? And now I don't even think like that. I'm like, oh, that's probably a conditioning I picked up somewhere that if just as easily as I picked it up, I can drop it off. And it made the work feel really, I don't want to say easy because but it like fast and with ease, and dropping the shame and just realizing like, oh my God, this is just a belief I found somewhere. So let me unbelieve this. And then next one and next one. And it took the shame out of it. Like you said, it really took the shame out of it. And then that's when we really started quantum leaping.
And I feel like you quantum leap over and over and over again, and now you're like quantum leaping again. You've just now you're going to be having two different places. Can you go into like this next quantum leap, because I know you've shared about it on your personal page, so like let's go into kind of this new level that you're now going into and claiming, which I don't think you ever thought you could have it all, that you could have both. You're like, oh, do I want this, I want this, and like you've learned like, no, you just get to have both. So what's going on? Fill us in on like this new level that you're anchoring into.
Well, I'm so excited. So after 4 years of living in Tulum, pretty full time, but traveling a lot because Tulum is amazing, but it's quite small. So there's just moments where I feel like I need something more to be around more people. And I had been thinking of moving, and I like for a year we had been talking about where should I move next, where should I go, and I was visiting these places and trying to get a feeling of like what's the next step, and nothing was coming because every time I really thought about leaving Tulum, it didn't feel in alignment. And so then finally it just dropped in. I woke up at 4 a.m. And it's like have both. So I ended up I'm keeping my Tulum place, and I got a place in New York City as well. And so
And like I feel like you coming back to New York City is such a like it's a full circle because you're going back a different person. It's not going back to like the hustle and this. It's like literally a full circle shift and like you now are gonna have two places. A beautiful apartment in New York City, like gorgeous. Her Tulum apartment is gorgeous. Your life is just everything is just gorgeous, and it's like wow, like it's really full circle. Get to have it all. Best of both worlds. You want Tulum vibes, you go to Tulum. You want New York vibes, you go to New York. Plus, you have all your travel to Europe and Aspen and Florida and all of these incredible places in between. And it's just like you could have it all.
overflow. I mean, this is the true overflow. But it's funny you mentioned the beautiful thing because as a creative and someone who works in the beauty industry and a creative director and owns a beauty brand, for me, beauty is very important. It feeds my soul. Everything I do is like, I want the most beautiful thing. I want to make it the most beautiful. And so, really, when I was thinking of where do I go next, what I was feeling was the lack of like, well, if I want two places, then I'll have to get something not as nice, right? That was kind of what I was experiencing last year. And to be honest, I don't think it was the divine timing yet. Like everything wasn't fully ready for me to step back in New York because anchoring this frequency is why I can go back there because I won't be pulled back into kind of the noise or the mainstream think. I can go now as a unique individual who has a unique like energetic signature and unique belief systems and not have like be pushed off of all this so quickly. So it was really like it wasn't time when I was thinking to do both, but I really thought I'd have to sacrifice something. And when I was looking at this New York apartment, I was like, no, I want luxury. I want floor, like I have floor to ceiling windows in the Tulum apartment, and I wanted floor to ceiling windows. I wanted an island. I wanted a kitchen. I wanted a walk in closet. I wanted a one bedroom, not a studio. And in New York, these things that seem small are very quote unquote expensive.
Yeah.
And, I just said, well, why not? Like, why not? Because also, I don't know what going there is also going to increase. And so we talked a little bit the other day, but now after I decided to move forward with the apartment, I have more opportunities with clients to start being on photo shoots again. That was kind of what I did before. I did a lot of art direction for beauty campaigns and a lot of like in studio on set work. And now going back, I've already have an opportunity to do a shoot once a week with one of my main clients, and that covers the cost of the apartment already. So it was really like the way we do it and play with it. And you always say like you lead money. And I remember when you first told me that concept, like I did not understand that at all. I'm like, what do you mean I lead money? Like there's always like the money is there. It's not like where am I leading it? I couldn't grasp that until I started to do it and feel it. Like the Monaco day was that first step of leading money where I was feeling wealthy without having the proof yet. Mm-hmm. And now I realized I knew if I book the apartment I truly want, right? And I don't mean excessive, I mean what just like that meet my standards of living, then something's going to come in that will cover this. And I just do it. And so by taking the first step and signaling to the universe, I'm ready to expand again, then the opportunities start to fall in that support that next expansion. So it's blind faith. And as we're covering in Trust Fall, which, oh my gosh, for a $33 course, this thing is revolutionary. And you didn't even ask me to say this. I just was like, how is there so much gold in such like just a 2-hour masterclass? But in Trust Fall, we've been talking about expanded action, which is what that was like the action of me getting the apartment in New York was expanding my life and still keeping the Tulum place. Like that was true expansion because I didn't have to choose. I don't have to choose to live in the city again full time, which I don't want to do. And I don't have to give up like my sanctuary here in Tulum, which I love to retreat back to. So, by taking the expanded action and not worrying about the hows, already the how took care of itself. And I mean, that was just like a miracle, but it's just like just more proof that keeps me wanting to signal more and lead more and trust more. And that compounding result is like really what makes me realize like this is all happening and I can continue to make this happen.
I mean, I agree. I think trust fall. I think it's like $77, whatever it is. It's still like for what it is. I was like, even I think I'm like, this is probably one of the greatest like programs I've ever like. It's remarkable, especially with the formula. But I love how what you said about the proof wasn't there yet. And I think a lot of people like wait for the proof, and you're like, no, I moved and then the proof. In Monaco, I moved and then the proof. New York, I moved and then the proof.
Yes. Well,
And then once you start getting the proof, yes, it's more easier to trust the proof, but it did require that certainty first, that frequency of certainty first to get that trust in.
the certainty. I don't know if you heard the notification right when you said certainty, but yeah, it was that certainty. And the other thing we've talked about, which I think is important to mention, because yes, the energetics are so important and they are what help things move fast and move to the next level. But again, like we had talked about it because I wasn't going to put myself in a situation that also I wasn't ready for. So I was looking at apartments that I knew would be expensive in the terms of like normal real estate, but weren't out of the reality and the realm of what I had already anchored in for the last year. So it wasn't just like, taking a big leap without having some level of the foundation already there. Because I think you can, quantum leaping is amazing, but if we overleap, sometimes like we might not have that safety net of the energetics to catch us because we're not there. And so I had to truly get there, not just like mentally, but also financially for this to then be the next step. But just because you're financially there doesn't make the next step less scary. Sometimes it can feel more scary. What if it all goes away? Now I'm holding two places, not just one. And so it was both. You helped work through both with me, the energetics of certainty, but also you always like remind me, like this is the percentage that you should spend on rent, and this is where you've been at income wise, and you can do this. And so we were quantum leaping, but we were staying within a world that was still like logical and it felt safe to do.
It's like that edge of like safety where we're not like completely going off where you're like draining the bank account to zero. I can't like doing all that stuff, but it's like a little edge and anchoring that as you go. And that's actually the faster way to quantum leap than by maybe going too big of an edge than that your system can actually handle, that it can't expand at that pace or that you can't hold, and then it all collapses and then you spiral, right? You actually do it faster by doing these like little in quotations, but these little jumps that collapse it and really start to stack it. And you know all about stacking the certainty. And that's why I'm always like stack, stack, stack versus dysregulate the system completely and then not be able to hold it.
Yeah, so it's been like that's again I come back to the fact that I'm a logical businesswoman. So it's also it has to run through both metrics. Like it has to run through my energetics, like what I believe is possible and pushing that edge, but then it also has to make sense. And I love that we're always working in both of them. I don't think you've ever given me advice that doesn't make practical sense at the same time of always thinking like how do we move to the next level as well.
Yeah. It's like we're playing in the illogical, but at the same time, we're not like too far off in the astral where we completely disconnect from the 3D world, forgetting the fact that we do operate in a 3D world that requires like money for food, money for this. Like there are some 3D things that we also kind of have to play, but there's like the cheat codes of you leveraging that with the energetics and the quantum stuff together. So I love that.
Yes.
Where can everyone find you where can we follow your journey creating this amazing, luxurious skincare? Guys, this face mask, I've tried plenty. I've tried like all the Aztec clay thingy mask, whatever. This isn't just a mask. This is an experience. Okay, let me just put it out there. She's incredible. The best ingredients, all like you guys know my vibe. I'm natural, non-toxic, and it's all of those things. But also, I'd love for you to just follow Elizabeth and really get to see how she not only claims that level, but like she gets. It's one thing to like claim it, and it's another thing to like get to that level on repeat, which you do over and over again. And we're about to do again and
Yeah,
again and again and again as things get better and better, because the better it gets, the better it gets.
it's
So
true. It's true. It's the embodiment. The embodiment is the key. So my personal journey is on Elizabeth in Tulum, as I'm still in Tulum right now. So, and then the brand you're talking about, Face Kit, is my passion project. And as you said, it's food grade, natural ingredients. So it's skincare, so clean you can eat it. We really only work with like superfoods, botanicals, minerals, and superfruits. And it's a face mask that you mix up per use, so there's no chemicals, preservatives, or fillers. So, I mean, it is truly clean skincare, which is what I personally use as someone with sensitive skin and just overall sensitivities. I started kind of making my own skincare because I wanted something really clean, and that's how Face Kit was birthed. And so that is just facekit.com. Or just Face Kit on Instagram, you can find it. And there's a lot of new stuff coming. We're working on a new launch, which is exciting. And with our coaching, I've actually pivoted a bit from, doing a direct to consumer approach to kind of going for some major retailers right now. So
you're gonna see it in stores near you. Like I'm telling you, I've already seen it. I saw it like what 6, 7 months ago. I saw it. I'm like, no, I was meditating and it dropped in. I saw you, like, because when we're connected so much that every day, like your feel is connected to mine. I get random information for you. I don't even think I told you were my dream last night and 2 nights ago. Like we're just doing things in the astral realm. We're doing things in this realm. We're just always together.
I mean, you're in my head all the time. Well, what would Liv say? What would Liv do? Well, Liv said this, and I'm just constantly like, anchoring in all these things that I've learned from you. But yeah, we're pushing to the next level, and yeah, hopefully you'll see it in Whole Foods or Erewhon or Sephora and many other places. And it is also available online, and we have a lot of new things in the pipeline for that.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you, all that you're building, all that you're creating, and also like your experience of it all, and just what your experience that you have in life and in your business, and just watching you blossom. I think I said this at the beginning of 24, and I still think this to be true. It's only the beginning. Like we have just scratched the surface in terms of where you are going, which I think is like, it's like, oh my God, crazy. But then like, of course, because we're just scratching the surface. So thank you so much for coming on. This has been a pleasure of lifetimes. I feel like, yes, like you said, like the friendship, the way we've like this last year together has been absolutely incredible. And you were just a pleasure to have on the podcast, but also a pleasure of a human to coach and mentor. And I'm just so excited for all that's unfolding.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And thank you for changing my life and for stepping into your power, because that's what's truly led to you being able to help other women step into their power. So, I mean, I love you so much. And I truly, truly like wouldn't be where I am without our coaching. So thank you for everything.